Scripts are the basis of how the acting industry works. Once a script for a film or TV episodic is ready to be cast, it is disseminated to hundreds, if not thousands, of acting hopefuls to gain just one of the characters written on the page. So, understanding the script, or more specifically, the sides that were sent to your child, is crucial in making the right decisions for their audition. As a refresher, sides are a small portion of the script that are pulled for audition purposes. Now, in this lesson, I'm going to show you sample sides and walk you through step by step so that you understand everything on the page and why it matters. There are clues and details that should not be skipped over. And when they are, it can decrease your child's chances of booking because someone else took notice and it likely affected the choices that they made in their audition. Everything on a script and sides is important. Not one letter or number should be ignored. And I'm going to show you why. But as a general rule, read the entire script before you jump straight into your child's lines, even if some of the information is crossed off, which I'll get into in a moment. So this is a sampling of some of the scripts that come through our household with 3 actors under the same roof. This is likely a year's worth of scripts. And it's why I tell you that your child has to get good at memorization. And coming up, we'll talk about why mental health is so important, because I think between me and my 2 daughters, we may have each booked 1 role out of this stack. That's a lot of rejection if you don't frame it properly. Out of this audition stack, I pulled these audition sides from the Disney show Bunked for the character Winnie. Now, this scene has already aired, so I am no longer under an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, not to share them. So oftentimes on larger shows and films, casting will ask you to sign an NDA before they'll even release the sides to you. It basically says that you will not share the audition with anyone publicly or privately, or you can be held liable, because it's sharing proprietary information. So it's important to note again that anytime you receive sides or a full script for your child to audition, never share them, especially if you're signing an NDA. Not only will your child not get the job, you could be faced with a potential lawsuit from the production company because they're trusting and holding you to a contractual agreement that you will not share their proprietary information. Unfortunately, because scenes have been leaked in the past, or if the show your child is auditioning for is so big that production doesn't even want to risk having proprietary information out there, a lot of times you'll receive what the industry refers to as dummy sides. These are made-up lines for the sole purpose of the actor to audition. Many times, you won't even know that they're dummy sides, but sometimes it's a dead giveaway or the casting director just tells you. For instance, if an actor was auditioning for Stranger Things and they mentioned Instagram, that would raise a red flag because the show takes place in the 80s. Marvel is also notorious for sending out dummy sides because their plot of their new superhero movies is typically under wraps. Bottom line, it doesn't matter. Even if the sides are made up for audition purposes, they are still going to create a scene in which the character needs to evoke the same emotion. It's just production's way of safeguarding their upcoming season or plot secrets. Now, back to the sides. At the very top, you can see the episodic name, Bunked, Winnie Sides. That's who your child is auditioning for. Writer's Draft 10/14/21 tells you the last update to the script before they were sent out from casting. And off beyond the date is a small number 1 with a period after. This is crucial information that unfortunately is not always included with sides, but when it is, take it as a gift. This number 1 means that it's the very first page of the script. This scene is the opening scene of the show. That tells us that we're in the establishing portion of the story. 1 page of dialogue equals 1 minute of production. Roughly 25 pages make up a half-hour sitcom to allow time for commercials, 50 to 60 pages for hour-long shows, and 90 to 120 pages for movies. So why do the page numbers matter when auditioning? Well, consider this. If your child is auditioning for a movie called The Cookie Bandit, and they're being accused of stealing the cookie on page 10, chances are they didn't do it. We normally don't catch a criminal within 10 minutes of a movie. But if they're being accused on page 110, your child is likely auditioning to be the bandit. And if casting wanted that to be a secret for whatever reason, you have clues to figure it out. Most of the time, child actors get started with 1 or 2 line roles, so it's important to get as much information about these characters as possible to help make good decisions about how to play the character. And page numbers can be a clue. Remember how stories are created to help see where your child's sides reside. Here's a little refresher English lesson to better explain. Stories start with an introduction. This is where the character development and introduction takes place, followed by rising action or the development of the plot. This includes events leading up to the problem or conflict, followed by the climax or struggle of the story. This is when the problem reaches its highest point. And then the falling action. This is when the characters work to solve the problem or conflict. And finally, the resolution. This is how things end up in the story. So based on the page number, you can get a better idea of where your child's character falls, so you can make a better determination of what may be happening in the script and even how opposing characters' emotions may affect your child's character. Now, back to the script. The marker writing is from the casting director. This says bumped, S6. The S stands for season, and the 6 tells us the show is currently in its 6th season. This is scene 1, and a huge arrow tells us where they would like your child to start the scene for auditioning. In the middle, it says Winnie sides. And again, off to the right, we have another giant marker saying Winnie. So there is no mistaking these sides are for the character Winnie. Fade in. This means production will be bringing up the shot from a black screen, which makes sense since it's the opening scene. Underneath the black marking says INT, Ranch Day. These are 3 important pieces of information. INT stands for interior, meaning the scene is shot inside. EXT stands for exterior and means the scene is shot either outside or on a soundstage that is meant to look like outside. Ranch tells us physically where the scene is taking place, and day tells us the time it's taking place. Time of day is vital, especially for children, because their energy levels are going to be much different during the day than they are if the script had said late evening. It's a clue to let your child know which type of energy they should bring to the audition scene. Right under that is the sentence that says, Parker approaches Winnie. This is called a director's note. It's explaining the action that is happening in the script. So on the day of the shoot, after the director calls action, the actor playing Parker would literally walk up to Winnie and deliver his line. Director's notes are throughout the entire script and should never be read by the auditioning actor or the reader. They are simply there to give you more details about what is happening in the scene. Make sure you read them, and if the director's notes directly affect the character for which your child is auditioning, don't ignore them. Meaning if the director's note says the character suddenly begins coughing uncontrollably, your child is going to need to cough uncontrollably. But if the director's note says the character picks up their bike and starts pedaling, that's something that they clearly don't expect you to do. And oftentimes will cross out in certain areas of the sides if they would like you to disregard. And remember, just like anything, learning how to read a script and make decisions with your child will get easier with each new script you receive, because each script is different. Each casting director is different in the way that they deliver them to the actors, and directions will vary across the board. So once you know the basics, you'll start to understand that there's a lot of freedom and fun that can come from delivering these scenes. And remember, if you want to practice, you always have the option of going to Breakdown Services on actorsaccess.com and download scripts. So back to the script. Parker is the name of the other character in the scene, and underneath is Parker's dialogue. Next is Winnie in the middle of the paper, and her dialogue is listed underneath. In parentheses, you'll notice the word proud. Disney and Nickelodeon are notorious for doing this. They want to leave nothing to chance, so they're going to tell you exactly how they want your child to feel and react within their scripts. Other productions normally leave that up to the actor to choose, but not on child-intended programming, the likes of Disney and Nickelodeon. They want the script to read exactly as it's written, with the exact emotion stated. So here's a tip. If your child ever auditions for either of these networks, be sure they learn their lines verbatim. There's a term called word perfect in the industry, where some productions want the actors to know every line as it is written, and others allow actors to have some free will to improv a little with the script. Disney and Nickelodeon are word perfect productions. So now back to the script. After Winnie says proudly, Winona Weber, you see another word in parentheses that says then. This is called a beat. Don't ever ignore it. A beat is a pause and a change in energy. What casting is looking for is Winona Weber. You've heard of me, right? If your child misses that beat, it could come across as Winona Weber. You've heard of me, right? It's not exactly what they were asking for, which is why they put the emotions in parentheses so no comedic beat is missed. They're trying to make it fail proof. So anytime you see the words beat or then, make sure you remember that is a pause and a shift in energy. The script continues all the way to the next page, which shows because they have a black marker with the words continued at the bottom of the page, which simply means the scene is continued on the next page. You'll also notice this is page 1 of 7. This audition came with 3 scenes for a total of 7 pages, and casting asked that each scene be performed. If your child is asked to record multiple scenes, each scene should be shot separately, meaning you don't keep the camera rolling and go right into scene 2 and 3. You stop, then start again. Then casting will give you instructions on how they want it delivered. All scenes edited together or each scene uploaded separately. More to come on this in the how to self-tape video. Sometimes a script will show a huge X or lines that are crossed out of the script. Do not skip over these if they're legible. The crossed out section means casting does not want that as part of the audition. However, any additional parts of the script is a way for you to gain a deeper understanding of the show and the character your child is auditioning for. Sometimes you'll be sent the entire script, and if you do, read it. It's a gift. You'll better understand the entirety of the character and the story as a whole. Also, look up who is directing, producing, and casting the production. If you remember from the auditions lesson, people in the industry tend to work within their same genre. So this will give you more clues about whether this is a drama, comedy, or psychological thriller if it's not mentioned or immediately clear. But most of the time, the genre is listed. But by researching the people behind the production, you can gain a better feel for the type of acting they normally cast. Is it incredibly real and raw? Is it sarcastic deadpan humor with perfect comedic timing? Or is it child-intended content? These are all different types of acting, so knowing how to steer your child to perform is a huge help. And don't think too hard about this. Just know that your child is going to have more energy and be a little more over the top on a Disney audition than they are for Law and Order. If the show is already in production and the script is for a season 2 or beyond, please watch one of the shows and have your child watch it if it's appropriate before auditioning if you're not familiar with the project. More on appropriateness in a moment. But I recently had an audition come through where the casting director put in the audition notes that actors were consistently mispronouncing the series regulars' character names. The show is in season 2, so this shouldn't be happening. If you're unsure about any part of the script, do your research to ensure a better chance of your child booking. As for appropriateness, we have a rule in our family that if anyone is uncomfortable with any of the dialogue or subject matter of an audition, we pass on that audition. There will always be another audition. So in our opinion, it's never worth compromising your morals or your values for a role, especially because that content will live on forever. So be certain you and your child feel comfortable performing whatever is being requested. I have 2 acting daughters, and their line in the sand is very different, and it's changed over the years. So make sure you're staying in communication with your child so you understand their personal parameters. Additionally, if your child is auditioning for a horror film or a very adult drama or comedy, know that the children are rarely, if ever, a part of the inappropriate or scary scenes on set. If it looks like a child was part of that scene in the finished product, chances are it was edited to look that way or handled in a way that was comfortable for that child and their parent. A child actor's well-being is at the forefront for production, but you as the parent need to make sure your child is okay with all the material and if they book, all the circumstances on set. Remember, if it's a union job, you will have a set teacher there as your child's advocate to help you if you ever feel uncomfortable speaking with production. In our experience, we have worked with the most incredible people who were always handling us with the utmost respect and care. But if you come across someone who doesn't, it is well within your rights to advocate for your child. Oftentimes, as parents, we are so grateful that our child was selected for this role that we get on set and we don't want to do anything to mess it up. But unfortunately, that can create an imbalance of power. SAG-AFTRA has a rule that you should be within sight or sound of your child at all times. This includes during hair and makeup, wardrobe, when your child is being mic'd, mealtime, and when they're on set. If your child is shooting in a location where you can't see Ask the audio person for headphones. They're called ears on set. This way you can hear your child through their microphone. As the parent of a child actor, I am not going to lie, it is exhausting on set. You are a dancing bear for your child to make sure that they're fed and in the right mood and that they have their lines memorized. And they're doing everything that they possibly can. They're entertained during their downtime. But your most important job is to keep them safe. A set in and of itself can be a very dangerous place if you're not careful. You should always be holding your child's hand as you're walking through set so that they're not tripping over any cables. And oftentimes, if you're on a sound stage, it can be very dark. So make sure you are within sight and sound of your child at all times to keep them physically and mentally safe. You have a right to say something if you feel your child is in danger. This includes any potential stunts they want your child to do. If so, a stunt coordinator should be on set on behalf of your child. And even then, you have final say in regards to what your child physically does on that set. So now that you know how to read a script, let's learn how to be a better reader for your child. Best rule of thumb, this is not your audition. This is your child's audition. I say that because that's the number one complaint from casting directors when receiving auditions from child actors recorded by their parents. For some reason, parents feel the need to outact their child by either being louder than their child or evoking more emotion than their child. This is the perfect recipe on how not to get your child booked. Instead, follow these simple tips. First, stay off camera. You should be behind the camera, just off to the right or to the left, so that your child's eye line is not directly into camera like I'm speaking to you, but close enough so that you're not getting a profile shot. More on this in the self-taping video. Second, don't be too loud. It's extremely distracting and takes away from your child's audition. The best way to read with your child is to stand back from the recording device or microphone several feet and simply read with your child in a clear and audible voice so that your portion of the script can be heard. Lastly, you want to give just the right amount of emotion, but nothing over the top. Just enough to where your child can feel justification for their emotions of the scene. If it's an argument, it's okay to raise your voice, just not to the point where you're out acting your child. You want to be a little muted as to what would be normal in the scene so that you let your child shine. So now that you understand a script, know how to read a script, and be the best reader for your child, it's time to self-tape and edit.